Then, of course, the fourth exercise is all slurred. We're in groups of 3, and we're going up all of our intervals and back down to the note that we started on. Now, Moyse suggests that you practice this at 60 beats per minute. And I think that's a really amazing tempo to get to. However, if you're having trouble playing these intervals smoothly, slowly, be sure that that is intact first. Whenever you try to speed an interval up and slowly you haven't been able to really master that sort of stretching, that elasticity that we want in those intervals, then it's going to be much more obvious when you speed it up. Moyse describes this as needing to be as flexible and flowing and without unevenness or breaks in the sound. So as we go through this exercise, I think it's really important to not only work on the intervals, but the quality of sound in both registers, right? So you might have, for example, in this first exercise, a really solid F on top of the staff. So, and of course, that's the note we're always coming back to. But as we get up higher, let's say an octave or more, right? Are all of the tops of the intervals, are all those top notes actually the quality of sound that you want? So I recommend playing each of these top notes by themselves to get that feeling in your embouchure, in your setup that you want for those higher notes, and kind of feel what that feels like to play. And so what you're trying to do then is smoothly transition to that space. Right? So I think there's so many ways to transition, and don't forget about the smoothness of the fingers. I think this plays so much more of a role, especially in this exercise, but making sure that your fingers are also sort of moving, like stretching that taffy like we talked about before, where they're not just coming up or slapping down on the keys. We want to really create this smoothness, not only in the air, but in the fingers as well. One way I think that would help accommodate that is this balance, sort of this kind of putting light pressure on the balance points as you change notes. So if I were to demonstrate it without the flute, it'd be ba-dee-da-dee-da-dee, right? That's just, a visual representation. Of course, this motion's much smaller than that in reality, but just to get an idea of what that looks like or would feel like. So. And of course, it's nothing you can actually see when I do it, but you can hear that the intervals are very smooth from note to note, and maybe playing them that slowly before you speed up the tempo. And when we speed up the tempo, know that things are going to move a bit faster. You're maybe going to want to adapt to a one-size-fits-most embouchure rather than going up and down so drastically and kind of pinpointing each note. Eventually, we might go so fast that that's not possible. So it's one thing to keep in mind is the speed at which you're going. And if you haven't been able to create that really beautiful elasticity in the interval, slow it down until you get there, and then practice speeding maybe just that interval up. It's absolutely worth your while because it'll inform all of your legato playing. When we have downward intervals in the back half of these exercises, our elasticity in the downward intervals are something to keep in mind as well, right? So let's say we have that takes a lot of concentration and listening. If you have these memorized, I highly suggest playing them with your eyes closed, or even if you just learn the pattern, it's all semitones basically, downward intervals. But as you go to the bottom, make sure that the quality of sound at the bottom is also what you're wanting, so you can play them on their own. So when you're able to get the sound that you want in the low register and then adding those upper notes in, so you're not just focused on the upper register or the note that you're trying to hold, but really getting the quality of sound as you go between those octaves. I think this is one of the best exercises for consistency of sound, which is absolutely what Moyse is after, because you have to pay attention to the quality of sound as you go throughout the registers. And that's such a challenge on our instrument because it has such different tendencies of timbre and airflow in all registers.